All right, Luca Nation, welcome back. Your Monday episode, kind of a brain dump, two brain dumps, basically. And
Looking
I'm
sharp,
very,
man. Look sharp.
very excited for today's episode. Thank you, Cage. It's Halloween. You did a funny post of like, this
Candies.
is the candy that you should give, and this is the candy you shouldn't give. This is the candy that kids fight over. So it's all good stuff. Real quick, just let me tell you guys a little bit about the why of this channel. Why do we do what we do? Because Cage did an amazing collectible buy sell video. We're talking, sell hertz before season. We say buy hertz. Understand these words buy and sell aren't, directions. They're how we view the market. And specifically, I believe the hobby is one of the hardest things to learn, especially one of the hardest industries to learn, profit, and have fun in because of the complexity. Which card do you buy at what time? So when we say these things, our goal is not to trade ahead. Our goal is not to buy these assets and then tell you guys to buy them. Our goal is to save you some time, effort, and the mistakes that I've been making in the past and share the learnings with you. So I hope you guys appreciate it. We've been getting a ton of engagement on YouTube, on Instagram, on YouTube Shorts. So please continue with that. We love it. You could agree, you could disagree. I just want to tell you where my heart's coming from. Second thing,
And I love the disagree, by the way. I love the disagree. I got a lot. You could imagine what my DMs look like. We got people making videos, black and white versions of it. People just like go doing all kinds of stuff. And what's fun is I love it because, at base, why are we collecting these things? They're cardboard with pictures of people on them, right? Is because we're fans. I mean, that's why fanatics came into this, right? And that's why the money has come in. We're fans of the folks on these cards. So, I think it would actually be a little weird if I didn't get some people saying, "Oh man, you're wrong. Hertz is the man. Hertz is awesome. Look what that team's doing. They're going to go undefeated. He's going to win the MVP, and he's going to win again next year. He's going to win multiple Super Bowls in the next couple of years." That's your guy. That's fine. That's great. But I think part of what Andrew was saying here is there's a little bit of a difference between the guy and the guy's cards. It's a little bit of a difference between the performance on the field, on the court, and the prices. And we'd love for those to run lockstep. And there have been companies that have come and gone, banking on them running lockstep, and they haven't run lockstep. But I love it. The dialogue is fun. I mean, look, we're doing this. You say, why do we do this? I mean, for me, it's easy, fun. I mean, I get to talk about cards. I get to talk about sports. I get to, post stupid things about candy and, and the like. And I get great messages and I get into dialogue. I mean, I was talking yesterday back and forth with somebody who does like data analytics. I think he works at Alt. And he's like, this is what my analytics say. And I'm like, well, I have different analytics,
What did the analytics say?
That Jalen Hurts is the beast and that Jalen Hurts is going to be the best player ever. And, it was a well-reasoned argument, but the thing about it is where I come from is
opinion.
There were analytics behind it, but that you said, what did the analytics say? I mean, the analytics that was the conclusion that the analytics led to. So the thing about it is, and where I guess I'll go with it is the hobby. If I could just really do a quick summary, I've done my slot machine one. The hobby is a casino with a roulette table. And a lot of people who've come in the hobby in the last couple of years were never allowed in the casino before. And they never stood by a roulette table and saw how, random it is. And then how, if you bet on a number, 1 out of 36 times that number is going to come in, right? 1 out of 37, 1 out of 38, if you throw your double zeros in the whole deal, right? And if you've watched enough spins of that roulette wheel in a casino over time, you realize how rare it is for everyone to be at that roulette table betting on the same number and those numbers continuously coming up, win, 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 win. And that's what we had at this hobby for the longest time, for the last couple of years. It didn't matter what number you bet on, that wheel hit that number, right? You could have put your money on any, you were going to win, right?
Bull.
And you haven't, even bull, right? But now, as the spins continue, the odds are getting back to where they were before this crazy, different type of game that was being played where, there were 35 balls in the thing at once and you could hit every number. Now there's one ball
Taylor
again.
Horton Tucker.
Taylor Horton Tucker is another great one, right? Just so many of them. And Brandon Clark. You could have paid money on Brandon Clark if you got in early enough and out early enough, right? So SGA, who's having a great performance on court, and it doesn't matter because no one even knows what team he plays for.
I would argue it actually overcorrected. It almost feels like they're advertising 38 slots, but there's like 150.
Maybe, but that you could be right. I'm taking the same analogy, but the thing that I would say is, they have the little electronic thing that says, okay, you're betting on black and red. It comes up red so many times. If you double down, it's okay to take some of those chips and move them off the table. People who have only been in this and see just win, they're like, oh, I'm just going to keep chasing. I'm going to keep gambling. You don't have to just continue to keep betting with the expectation that a win is coming. That is the gambler's fallacy, right? Now, the win is not always necessarily coming. And when you do get that win, which is rarer than it has been over the last couple of years, when you do get that win, that win is important. You should, be smart about what you do with that win. Jalen Hurts, in this time where the ball goes in and lands on green, right? It goes and lands on the Eagles, it lands on Hurts, and not Herbert, not Mac Jones, not Justin Herbert, not Trey Lance, not none of them, but it lands on Hurts, and you have the winner. You don't automatically have to leave your money there and let it ride. You can let some of it ride if you think it's going to hit your guy again, and you have some rational basis for why you think it's coming back on your guy again, but doesn't necessarily mean it's going to win. You take some of that, but that's kind of my dumb way of what I've seen in the hobby the last couple of years.
And you also got to imagine that Herbert will be a buy, right? Like if Herbert's number hasn't hit for it feels like an infinity. Like it does feel like Herbert is a play. I think his cards down. His index on card ladder is almost down 40%, 50% down.
Well, so it leads me to another fun thing that was from my DMs, and I did another episode of Uncaged, Black Jada Wolf Uncaged. It'll be out on Wednesday. We talked about this, and we both started saying that Herbert's a buy. She's not even putting her Herbert cards out in showcases anymore because she's not even going to sell at the prices people are offering them at or want to buy them at. And my take on it was I will soon be a Herbert buyer. By the way,
guys, if you're going to shows, stop bringing cards that you're not willing to sell and putting them in your.
She won't even put them out, right? So, but I said there will come a point in time where he's done for the year. The team is out of it. They're out of contention. People are dumping because they're looking to buy basketball playoff teams or to get into the baseball rookies or whatever it is they're going to be doing. That's when I buy. But I'll buy because I have a different window. I'm not looking to buy this week and sell next week. I'm not looking to buy and capitalize Jalen Hurts now, buy at 7-0 and hope that he goes to 11-0. That may work out for you. He may very well be 11-0 and you might have made 10% or 25% on that. My deal is to buy Herbert, sit on Herbert at what I consider a low, and then maybe look to sell Herbert in the offseason when they sign a new wide receiver for him. When some big news comes in, when he comes into camp in great shape and everybody's talking about it and the whole deal, right? So you've seen it now a few off seasons. You now know how this stuff works. Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, they were all in great shape coming into the season.
How would you play Kyler? So Kyler's someone who you wanted to finish.
Yeah, so we can talk about Kyler in a second, but the Herbert thing, this is another thing that I try to explain to people, and it's difficult because our fandom gets in the way, right? Our fandom gets in the way. Hurts guys. Let's just use Hurts and Herbert because it's a great analogy. You put it up on the story today, and you can see their indexes doing this. So when you are in on the right guy, when you have bought Hurts in the beginning of the season and you're up on Hurts, right? And I say something like, okay, I think now is the time to take some money off the table on Hurts. You should sell your Hurts cards now because of the run up. The most common answer I get in response is, no, he's still half of Herbert. Okay, that may be the case. But I will tell you over time, and I've seen this happen many, many times, what's more likely to happen is Herbert's price is going to come down than your card. Just because Hurts is half the price of Herbert right now, it doesn't mean Hurts has a doubler in him. It doesn't mean he's going to double to catch up to Herbert. More likely, if Hurts is at 10 and Herbert's at 20, what winds up happening is Herbert comes down to 12 and Hurts goes to 12 and they meet there. It's not going to be, oh, wow, Herbert's going to stay at 20 because that's just what Herbert is. If Herbert's not having a good season, stuff is more likely going to come down and probably come down more than your Hurts is going up. People, when it's your guy, you just look at it as he's half of this guy, and you forget the fact that that guy is just as likely as your guy is to move up. In fact, more likely, the one who's not performing is more likely to come down because they've had a bigger run, and you're seeing it now.
Does it shock you the confidence? We'll get into Kyler in a second, but does it shock you the confidence that people respond with, especially when they're
no, people are putting real
hobby?
money. People are putting real money into this stuff. These are their guys. It's who they're fans of. I would actually be surprised if I didn't have people responding in that regard. But I mean, you
a
can
lot of
have
confidence, not a lot of curiosity. Is my take on comments on the internet.
well, I mean, look, if you go all in, you go all in, right? And you always have to be. It's part of shilling, right? It's part of part of doing that stuff, right? I mean, creative pricing and telling that story. If somebody's going to go out there and spend $50,000 on Jalen Hurts cards, they have to be Jalen Hurts fan. They have to be telling you why now is not the time to sell, despite the fact that I'm telling you all over the next couple of weeks the amount of Jalen Hurts supply that is going to come out. It will be enough to really take note of because people will be selling. And that's part of the reason why I try to be first and why I'm in week 7 saying sell some of your Hurts stuff now instead of waiting for him to be 11-0. Because if he's 11-0, guess what? Everybody's coming out with it then because they're and what winds up happening is even though 11-0 is better than 7-0, now your cards are competing with everybody else's.
I was gonna say that we look at comps and we're like the card I'm holding is gonna sell for that, but that's a huge naivety. That's a huge fallacy.
It's part of what people miss when you just talk about here's this guy. He's putting up MVP numbers. He's going to have 3 more great weeks. He's going to be 11-0. And the assumption that's made there, missing a variable, the variable is how the hobby actually acts. But the assumption that's made is Hurts will be worth more when he is 11-0 with more touchdowns, no more interceptions, more yards, and is that much closer to an MVP and a Super Bowl. That makes him better in fantasy. That makes him better in real life. That makes him a better quarterback. Obviously, everybody wants to be 11-0 instead of 7-0. Everybody wants to have more touchdowns. Everybody wants to have more yards. But the missing variable is the amount of other people who are also going to start selling at the time. And when you have that supply, that available supply that we talk about, believe it or not, you might get less at 11-0 than you're getting at 8-0.
A lot of factors. Enjoy that 12 minutes, guys. Maybe re-listen to that because that is like buying, selling, buy the hype, sell the news kind of crash course. What do you think about Kyler? So I didn't buy that 1-of-1 that we were talking about on What Whatnot shows. An Origins Auto 1-of-1 gorgeous card. DeAndre Hopkins is insane. That catch. Did you know he has huge hands? Like some of the biggest hands in football.
No.
Yeah,
I know Kenny Pickett has small hands.
Is that you? I'm a sycophant for that kind of stuff. Like I go and look at images. I'm like, how big are his hands compared to Kawhi? Because that catch was insane. What would you do with Kyler? Because I think they're going to fire their coach before they get rid of Kyler. And there's no second guy. There's no Bailey Zappi behind him, which is always favorable when you're investing in a quarterback.
Yep.
Is Kyler similar to a Hurts? You think he's got that run in?
Well, Kyler was Hurts. Kyler is my example of what I tell Hurts people. Kyler was, I think, 6-3. Basically offensive player of the year. Number 1 seed in the NFC. They were running away with it, and then the team kind of collapsed around them. And I think it was Kyler's second year. He was doing well. Like Kyler was the talk of the hobby. He was the guy who people were buying leading into that 2020 year, and he just had a lot of success. He was scrambling all over the place, throwing the ball the right way, getting wins after wins, and then it came unglued, and not because of anything Kyler did. Kyler's been Kyler the whole time. He's a scrambler. He makes crazy plays with his legs. Kyler as an investment, Kyler falls into what I call my Martha Stewart category.
Martha Stewart?
Yeah, Martha Stewart. So I say Martha Stewart is somebody that America loved, then hated, and cheered for her to fail, sent her to prison. We love to knock somebody down a peg, but then once they've been knocked down, the only thing we love more is watching them get built back up and building them back up.
And smoke the reefer with Snoop.
Become Snoop's best friend. We've talked about this a couple of times, right? So Kyler falls into that category because Kyler had the momentum. The only thing is that even though that works for Martha Stewart, I have a very hard time, especially with quarterbacks, coming up with a QB who has caught the momentum train, started off with a lot of hype, continued to ride up, and then fell, and then moved back up. Let's spend 30 seconds and think about recent quarterbacks who have had that. Who has come back? Who was hot and came back? We were hoping for it with Cam Newton. Didn't happen. You know what I mean? Like, give me
The first
another
one that
guy.
comes to mind is Lamar.
Lamar could be, right? But Lamar's cards are not exactly selling. But Lamar's a good example.
No. Lamar is the example that it hasn't come back, and he's still fantastic.
Correct. So he was great, MVP, took a little bit of a dip. He's playing great ball this year, and his cards have not come back up. So, it's a good exhibit A as to why it's difficult to find a reclamation story in the hobby. The hobby momentum train is one of those unique things. Once it falls off of this, straight up kind of track, it's very hard for them to regain that. I like to find those contrarian type of plays, right, where somebody had momentum and then you can buy them low. Maybe Herbert will become the first example of that just because he has such a floor. But the hobby darlings stay hobby darlings. Like Zion's cards, they've only come down because the hobby has come down. People haven't bailed on Zion's cards yet, even though he hasn't played in like 3.5 years. So even he has Jaws stuff came down a little bit. I'd love to see, if his, does the whole, back up. I'm trying to think of, like another example. Trae Young.
Who'd you say?
Trae Young. Trae Young
I was going to say Trae Young.
Because we're now in basketball. Trae Young, he was a high flyer. It was him and Luka. It was like, okay, he shouldn't be a third or a quarter. He should be half of Luka, and he was. And then all of a sudden, his cards fell off, and all he did last year was be the second player in NBA history ever to lead the league in scoring and assists. Think about that for a second.
30 and 10.
He led the league in scoring and assists at the same time in the same season. Not since Nate Tiny Archibald has that been done. But his card prices remain down. They may even be going down more. So if he's not an example of somebody who, went to the Eastern Conference Finals, 30-10, lead the league, like puts up numbers galore, but still does not regain, it's this to this with this. Kyler's difficult, man. The only thing I could see Kyler, doing is maybe he comes back and wins a Super Bowl, and then, it picks up from there. But even
you need a lot. It's that Nile. It's the ship stuck in the Nile.
It becomes a small thing, right? I mean, like Matthew Stafford won the Super Bowl, and there was a tiny little blip for his cards and the value, and nobody cares anymore. And it would be like, all right, a lot of people won one Super Bowl, nobody cares about their cards. A good example, which is a little different because he had talent that didn't have a chance yet, and I'm watching his values because, I have not bought any yet. But you could buy some nice stuff real cheap,
Geno.
and you want to root for Geno Smith. You know what I mean? But his cards.
That team was the team gave Cage's favorite quote yesterday. It's, imagine what could be accomplished when it doesn't matter who takes the credit. The way I took that was a shot at Russell Wilson for me.
100% was a shot at Russell Wilson. I think you're right. And
it kind of actually was the light bulb. It's like this is why he's not liked. He checks all the boxes, but now putting the pieces together with like what Sherman said and the other players, it's like I feel like he always wanted to be I think he always wanted the credit for his team, or at least that was a perception that his teammates had.
And if it's Lockett, come on, Tyler Lockett, you'd figure of all people out there who have a good relationship with Russ. But you stand by your team, right? It's one of those. It's like the old Patriots. Before everybody thought Brady was a GOAT and everybody just thought he was a system quarterback. There was a system, you buy into the system and the team plays like the Spartans. Everybody's got a role, and when they act together as a team, they could do big things. That's what Seattle's saying. But you're right, it was clearly a shot at Russ.
If you guys, I think now like connecting the dots, I think what people loved about Brady is he always took the blame when they lost. He would get the criticism, and when they won, he would shed light. I think the reverse is what they're implying here. When the team lost, it was the team's blame, defense, coach, whatever. And when they won, it was Russ took the credit. I think that's what the implication was. So Geno, you'd be buying?
I'm watching Geno's cards just out of sheer curiosity because the team looks good. He's throwing dimes. Even Lockett dropped one on him, a wide open pass. Lockett dropped one on him yesterday, like a touchdown bomb. And he just dropped it. It's just fun to watch because
first in that division.
it's fun to watch. I don't think they're going to win a Super Bowl. He's not winning the MVP, but I like those guys who have been left for dead stories, the comeback story. Especially somebody like him. I mean, he was one where I remember the draft with him. Like, he was angry that he didn't get drafted early. He's getting snubbed and getting passed over, and then he was on the Jets, and like I think one of his teammates like broke his jaw, right? Punched him in the face. I mean, like, he hasn't really had a chance to succeed. So it's one of those stories you root for, but in the hobby, there's a reason why Luka's cards, even when they go down, they don't go down too much. He's a hobby darling. You have to have a tremendous amount of demand and a floor for your cards. Geno Smith's cards fell through the floor into the basement, and it would take a miracle for them.
There was a bounty on the cards just for someone to take them off your hands.
Pretty much. But it's fun to watch. You know what I mean? Because that's we talk about different ways of having fun in the hobby. That's a fun way. Imagine you were a Geno Smith collector. And you're watching this happen now. Like, there's a huge bag for you now that you weren't expecting if you hang on to your Geno Smith cards. Kyler's somebody I like to root for too, man. I mean, Hurts we'll get to, right? I want to root for Hurts. We don't have enough people to root for, and the hobby needs success stories. The hobby needs a 7-0, 8-0 Eagles team, right? Otherwise, what are you rooting for? You got Trey Lance injured. You got Mac Jones throwing noodles with Bailey Zappi coming in. I mean, Zappi's going to save the hobby? No. Trevor Lawrence, since he came in the league, no one's worse against the spread than him. Seriously, worst record against the spread is Trevor Lawrence. Nobody's been worse against the spread than Trevor Lawrence, your number one pick. The savior, looks the part. You got Herbert shit in the bed this year. Burrow's, down a weapon, and that's going to hurt. You need Hurts, because who else are you rooting for? Tua.
It's always a quarterback, because really, if you look at that game, he threw 2 touchdowns into double coverage, and just A.J. Brown's a monster.
Yes.
Both of them were into double coverage.
Yep. Yeah. Brown's a beast. He really is.
Jalen Hurts had 4 touchdowns yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know how many passing touchdowns he has on the year? So this is 7 games in.
22?
10.
Really? Because he's got a lot of rushing touchdowns.
6 rushing touchdowns.
All right.
Do you know who leads the league?
Wait a second. He only had 6 passing touchdowns in the first 6 weeks? For real?
I had to double check it, brother. So he had 1. Here we are. So none against Detroit, 1 against Minnesota, 3 against Washington, none against Jacksonville, none against Arizona, 2 against Dallas. Do you know who's leading the league in passing yards?
Passing yards?
That used to be a stat that mattered, by the way.
Who's leading the league in passing yards? I'm going to say Jared Goff.
Tom Brady.
I said he was going to lead the league this year in passing yards. I said that in the preview show.
Isn't that crazy?
I mean, he's been throwing a lot. He's been throwing the ball a lot. That doesn't surprise me that much. I mean, I was going to say Geno Smith or, that one game Detroit played against Seattle. I figured, that skewed the numbers a little bit where they went for like 100 points between them. So
you know who leads the league in passing touchdowns? Played one last game than everybody else.
Mahomes.
Yeah.
A lot of guys are down. Rodgers this year is having a career low in almost every category. And the passing touchdowns have, been taken away by rushing touchdowns now too. I mean, a lot of quarterbacks have rushing touchdowns. Josh Allen's got a lot of touchdowns combined. Hurts has more touchdowns combined. Mahomes is just throwing the ball all over the place.
I have a bone to pick with the NFL.
Sweet. They shouldn't let the Texans play the Titans anymore. Derrick Henry gets 200 yards every time. Wasn't that amazing?
Insane. You were incredible on the props. I mean, what was your record, by the way, guys? Our Sunday episode from now on for the foreseeable future, guys, just join us on Whatnot. It's a blast. It's 11 a.m. It's a live episode. We have a ton of fun.
We give away stuff. We give away stuff live right there in the chat. Andrew makes fun of me. I put like Panini codes in the chat. I shout them out.
AXYO47, and then you're like, this is a 0, not a 4, not enough. But
it's like Little Orphan Annie. Little Orphan Annie's decoder ring. That was 4 out of 5 on props. 4 out of 5 on props. And the confidence one was Derrick Henry. I said Derrick Henry. It didn't matter. I had it at 99.5. A couple people had 102. I said he'd have it by halftime, and he had 105. With 4 minutes left in the first half, and he went over 200 for the 4th time in a row against the Texans.
That kind of stuff matters. Like something to look at. Like The 49ers own the Rams.
Yep.
It matters. It just plays. Here's another one to look out for. Andy Reid off of a bye week is insane. He cuts people's throats. Who's coming off of a bye week? The Chiefs. It's just these. There are these patterns that emerge. Chris Paul, when Scott Foster is reffing, forget about it.
Called AJ Brown again yesterday too, right? We called AJ Brown. Yeah,
he was
in the first quarter basically.
Yeah. What's the point of a penalty? Like, a penalty is to punish a team for doing something wrong. You guys need to figure out your penalties for pass interference and all the stuff that actually impacts the game. Celebration penalties are the stupidest penalties in the world because if you're taunting, that's a taunting penalty. But celebrating with fans and giving a 15-yard penalty to DJ Moore, we'll get to the kicker who was like taking selfies and sticking his tongue out and all that weird shit. And he's the one to blame, no question. But what is the 15-yard penalty there to DJ Moore? Like, what is his?
Take the helmet off.
After he scored a touchdown?
Can't take your helmet off.
Right. Why? Like, what's the logic there? Like that.
So it's the rule.
Right. No. And we've had rules in high school. Like, one of our rules in high school was you can't wear hoods.
Mm-hmm. Good idea. So everybody could see your face.
Or the back of your head.
Also it probably protects from, people coming in who aren't students and they put a hood on and, you can't tell whether it's a student or somebody looking to try to get into school to do harm. It was a rule put in for your own protection.
Yeah. They used to have a rule, no cell phones in school.
Yes, it's true.
That one went away with iPhones. I'm just saying all these rules, like sometimes it makes sense to like think of why there's
I hear
a rule.
You. It's tough to argue, especially to take your helmet off. I mean, look, I think part of what makes sports fun is that people are celebrating. And some of these celebrations are hilarious. And the refs, they kind of get into like, I remember, by the way, celebrating after touchdowns goes back to before I was born. If you want to, I don't want to YouTube this, but I think it was the 83 Redskins did this circle celebration where like the whole team got into it. And this has been a back and forth thing, whether you can celebrate, can't celebrate, show up the other team. Used to be like you could celebrate like as long as you did it individually and you couldn't get like the team involved in it. Like the rule has changed over time. And then it got nuts, Joe Horn, hit a Sharpie under the stanchion and he came out and he like won the Super Bowl. He scored a touchdown. And he has a cell phone Joe Horn.
Randy Moss,
like the whole you have all of these different kind of celebrations. Yesterday in the Cowboys game, their second tight end caught a touchdown, number 87, Ferguson, I think the guy's name was, and he looks in the end zone and he sees, I think it's Dalton Schultz, the other tight end, and he starts lassoing him. And he lassos him, and the guy's on the ground like this, and he ties him up like a rodeo, and the guy like falls over like this. And, I mean, I guess it's a Cowboys rodeo celebration, but I didn't see a flag for that, right? And I guess the refs could have thrown a flag for it. The DJ Moore one, the rule is, and maybe it's because of concussion stuff, maybe it's because of head injuries and whatnot. They just don't want anybody on that field without their helmet on. I mean, they want to make sure you keep your helmet on at all times. The play's over. It's kind of silly, but it's part of the celebration. It's part of the taunting. It's part of the whole deal, and it really cost them.
It really cost them. What's
cost them a win?
45-yard extra point, which is
just set it up. If you guys weren't watching this, DJ Moore caught a bomb Hail Mary, basically got me the prop,
which was insane.
The over on the prop when he caught it. He dropped one in the drive before it.
This is why you got Cage's props and not against the spread, by the way.
Yeah, so we got the prop and got Carolina, by the way, plus points in that game too. So they won. We won the game also on it because
that's for the division, man. That's a big game.
Oh, it was huge. Carolina would have been first in the division by tiebreakers. Instead, Atlanta is now first clear without a tie. Number one in the division. And he caught a pass, tied the game up. The extra point would have given them the lead with seconds left. I think it was like 30 or 40 seconds, like basically 13. Done. 13 seconds. Okay, so game is over, right? And because he jumps into the crowd, takes his helmet off, they give a 15-yard penalty, and that makes the extra point like a 43 or 45-yard extra point because smartly the Falcons enforce the penalty on the extra point.
Yes, not on the kickoff.
And they miss it. They miss the extra point, and so it's tied. It goes into overtime, and the same kicker misses a field goal to win the game. Also 40-something yards. And then Young Wei
The
Koo.
kicker's without a doubt to blame. He could have missed the 25-yard field goal, extra point, I mean. But
I mean, Moore probably feels terrible about it. I'm sure he's not
no,
going to ever do it again.
this is what you're here for. The fans get to celebrate with the player. That's the whole point of this game. It's not a celebration where he's taunting. Like,
I mean,
Stephon Diggs and that the Packers player like jawing at each other in the tunnel. That's way worse.
Yes. Especially given what happened with the Michigan State.
Yeah, like that's what would cause a fight. That's taunting. That's unsportsmanlike conduct. That deserves a 15-yard penalty. But celebrating with your fans, this is what the game's about. It's so stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have a very difficult time arguing against it. Baseball is more fun when they let the kids play, as they say. Let the bat flips go on. But yeah, I mean, rock the cradle. Even that, though, if baseball, what's funny about it is baseball, they're not penalizing you for celebrating. You can go out there and flip your bat, moon the guy, rock the cradle around the bases. There's no like, oh, you got to go back to second base or we're taking a run away from you. They kind of police themselves. You're going to get beamed in the head the next time you come up to bat if you do something you shouldn't do. But you don't like the unwritten rules either, right? So, I mean, what do we do? I mean,
I like unwritten rules. I love to tease. Like the bat flip and stuff. That stuff doesn't even bother. Or like I don't care. I think more of that. I think trash talk and antics is the best part of sports.
Hey, who's the best trash talker in each sport? Who's the basketball? Basketball. That's
best.
The best. Yeah, best. Like, who talks the best trash?
Well, I'm not there.
I know.
I mean, KG talks the most rude, obnoxious trash. I would say Jordan's intimidation is unlike anybody else.
There we go. I think they said Jordan, but KG's a good one. That's a very good one.
He has no boundaries.
Yeah, that's kind of usually the way to.
And he talks trash from the sidelines too. Like he's I gotta imagine today's day and age, Draymond's got to be up there. Like just how his impact is on people. It's
so. Listen, let's close it out with this. I don't want you to give away all the secret sauce, but you did an episode with Cajun Cardboard, right? Part of our network, talking about basically 10 things to take away, 10 takeaways from the first 10 days of the NBA season. Yep. Give me one that is surprising to you. One thing that, you take away from the first, let's call it 2 weeks of the NBA season, that is not what you expected. What's the matter?
There's so many good ones.
Oh, I thought like Haaland didn't score a goal finally or something.
We could talk about that in a second. Comps are not prices. Where your auction ends versus where the previous auction ends is not the same thing, guys. We could get into this later. How terrible the Warriors are defensively. That was one of them. Kawhi, like at one point, is Kawhi no longer injury management, and he's in the same book as AD, just never being available. We need to start having that conversation.
Yep.
I'll go this route. This is maybe a little. I'll go 2. Benedict Mathurin on Indy is a problem.
Been great. Yeah,
he's 20 years old. First off, Canada's producing amazing NBA talent. 20 years old, has a frame of like a 25-year-old. Like he's NBA ready, 6'6", looks like it says 210 online.
No,
he's 225, and he's averaging 43% from 3, 22 points a game, and he's not even
rebounds starting. And rebounds too. He fills the stat sheet. Kid's good.
He's like your traditional 2 guard back in the day. But the other one, and I said this, Cajun didn't agree. I think the Nets are going to finish with a worse record than the Lakers. I said the Lakers are like a symphony. If they could figure out who plays what instruments and just get their shooting a little bit better, there's still a problem. AD's averaging 2.4 steals a game, 2 blocks a game. And Westbrook off the bench is an interesting beast.
You, by the way, said Westbrook should come off the bench since the day they signed for him. So we'll give you credit for that one. And obviously that's what LeBron wanted, because as soon as he came off the bench, LeBron was singing his praises. So,
as advertised, the Nets were like, you have a passer in Ben Simmons, you have all these shooters around. This is going to be a perfect fit. They look like a disaster.
The only thing that worries me about the Lakers, you're right, is just a total lack of depth. They're going to have to ride their horses, and their horses are, they got some mileage on their legs. That's the only thing. But you're right. I mean, there could be a stretch during the season where they rattle off 10, 12 wins in a row. Definitely.
One really quick one, and we'll bounce. It's how important Brooke Lopez is to the success of the Bucks. So if you just back up to the Bucks, like they were the first seed right before COVID hit. COVID sort of derailed their momentum. They struggled in the bubble, and then Brooke had a back surgery last year, so he didn't play a lot of the season. When Brooke Lopez is in the game, him and Giannis average 5 blocks per game together, and I would say that like not deflections, but like altering shots, I would say it's close to 10-15. When he's in that lineup, that's a different team. You can't score in the paint. And he's not a name anyone talks about, Brooke Lopez. You hear Giannis, Middleton, Drew Holiday. Brooke Lopez is an interesting piece to that Bucks team that's just so different when he's in that lineup.
Gotta love it. Love
Peace,
it when
Luka
you
Nation.
have your basketball stuff, man. I can't wait for basketball season to ramp up because it's when you get the most excited. Take
Peace.
care, everybody.
So thank you all for listening to another episode of Lucas, Tigers, and Bronzo My. I wanted to tell you about a new service that we have starting as of today, and I'm really, really excited to bring it to you guys. So as a part of our partnership with SGC, we got 50 free submissions every single month, and many of you have taken advantage of that. And it's amazing that we could have the opportunity to 650 episodes, 675 episodes in, to go ahead and give back to our community. As people were sending those cards in, they asked, can we send 5, 10, 20 more cards to you guys? We'll pay for it, but we wanted them graded with SGC. You guys know SGC is turning cards around in 13 to 14 business days, have incredible customer service, and their secondary market values are going up day after day after day. And that's exciting for the hobby and exciting for the grading landscape. So we didn't want to just rush into it. We wanted to do it right. And what we did was I relocated here to Boca Raton, Florida. I opened up a P.O. box maybe 5 minutes away from SGC, and I will be hand delivering and hand picking up the cards. So you don't have to worry about anyone else touching your cards. It will be me, and I will update you every step of the way. So here's how it's going to work. I'm going to personally pick up the cards from a P.O. box, prep them, new card saver, new penny sleeve, and deliver them to SGC every single Tuesday. Why Tuesday? Well, it lets the stragglers over the weekend come back through on Monday and gives me a day to prep, and it basically gives SGC the entire week to work on grading those cards. Once your cards pop, only then at the end of the process will you be paying for the service. It's $25 per card, simple as that, and the turnaround times have never been faster. We're hearing right now 13, 14, less than 20 business days. So there it is. 9170 Glades Road, number 135 is the P.O. Box in Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. 9170 Glades Road, number 135, Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. Of course, you could shoot me an email or shoot me a text anytime, and I'm always available. Many of you already have my email. It's iamandrewgoldberg@gmail.com. or my cell phone number, 215-519-9154. Reach out with any questions. I could walk you through the process. I've hopped on the call with quite a few of you, and I'm happy to do that. Love you, Luka Nation.